All right, Satya, we're live.
Okay.
We're making some changes here at FBB HQ to spruce up the place.
Yeah.
What are you excited about?
I'm excited about art. I'm an art lover, and we're getting some cool murals done on the walls.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I'm not sure how I'm going to feel about the mirrors.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
We're putting in full-length mirrors on 2 walls. What are you thinking? What's going to make you feel uncomfortable, or how is that? What do you mean by that?
I don't know. I mean, I'll have to kind of see how it feels. I have always used mirrors in a more functional capacity, and it kind of picks at one of my insecurities, which is like, this is so ridiculous because most people have insecurities that are more related to like how they look, in a mirror. For me, I feel really self-conscious of the fact that I'm a very like asymmetrical mover. Like I have a hip shift when I squat and one arm is like a chicken wing and, and so when I'm moving in front of a mirror, I'm hyper conscious of my asymmetries and I'm always going to be wanting to like figure out if I can correct them. Maybe that'll end up being a good thing, but I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, also the placement of the mirrors are not really in places that I think you're going to be very often with where you set up for training most of the time.
Okay.
So you might not actually.
It might not come up.
Yeah.
If there was a mirror right in front of my squat stand, I'd be like,
yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I'm excited for the artwork that's going to be going in. We're in the design phase and coming up with like art inspiration. So we don't have a design yet, but
I am very grateful though that you heard my feedback about the jerk blocks, and like that makes me feel really special because I'm literally the only person in the gym that uses them. But every time I've been jerking off the blocks, it sounds so dirty to say. I've had to move them all around and clear everybody's stuff off because it just becomes a table. And so last time I spoke up and I said I'd really like for them to be out, and that felt like a risky thing to say.
I'm glad you did.
Yeah.
We made it happen.
Yeah.
Nate and I moved some stuff around yesterday. All right. Today I want to focus on something that you have been working on hard for years now. And I want to highlight it in a very positive light because I think a lot of people come into fitness, they set goals for themselves and immediately start to think like months, maybe a year. If someone's like, I have a year-long goal, like that's a huge long-term goal. But in reality, like some of the biggest things that we ever do in life take years and years to become really good at and master. So I want to talk about your journey of the strict muscle up. And I would like to start all the way back when you kind of had the vision of like, yeah, that's something I want. And then we'll walk through it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I started with CrossFit before I found functional bodybuilding. Before that, I had done martial arts, and so there wasn't really anything like this on my radar. But when I was doing CrossFit, obviously, it was the most impressive thing when someone could do a muscle up.
Sure.
And I never even saw anyone do a strict muscle up until I came here. Maybe in the games, like later on, I think they had them one year. But for the most part, it was like, if anyone could even get a kipping muscle up in the gym, that was like hella impressive.
Yeah.
And that just seemed like something that would never, ever happen to me. But when I came to functional bodybuilding, I remember I did my assessment and I could do 1 strict body weight pull-up and 0 dips. And so I started just trying to get stronger. So gradually, I started being able to do weighted pull-ups and add more and more weight to that. I got my dips better. I was able to do ring dips. And so it just started to dawn on me that potentially this could be something that might actually be achievable for myself.
Yeah.
And it felt like a big stretch goal because I don't build upper body strength easily. It has taken me sometimes a long time to even just be able to get like 1 more pull up than I would normally be able to get, or just add like 5 more pounds to my pull up. Like that's quite a bit of effort. But over the years that I've been doing functional bodybuilding, I've kind of been stacking these skills. So when I came, I couldn't do any kipping pull-ups. So gradually, like I developed the strength to do strict pull-ups and then add the kipping pull-up. I developed the strength to do a strict handstand push-up, which was something I also worked on for a long, long time before like that really clicked.
Yeah.
And then I was able to do kipping pull-ups. And so when it came to gymnastics, I was like, this is going to be just the same. Like I want to do a strict ring muscle up before a kipping ring muscle up.
Yeah.
Because I want to really make sure that I develop the shoulder strength and stability. It's a very advanced move. I don't want to mess up my body. I'm not the kind of person that wants to just go like flailing myself like over the rings without the proper strength. And when I started, it felt like this sort of quiet thing that I couldn't even really say out loud. And then I remember, and I think in fact we had a podcast one time where we talked about something that was a goal of ours for the new year or something like that. And I was like, I think I want to do a muscle up.
Yeah.
And I voiced that with my coach as well. And she was like, yeah, let's try to go for that. So that was when it first came on my radar. And I remember the day that I first started training for it, I had just some like ring pull-ups. It's like, do some ring pull-ups, maybe it was like in a false grip, and I could do maybe like 3. And I was like, no chance of pulling myself any higher. It just felt like this is going to be, it hurt my wrists. It was so uncomfortable. It was so outside of anything that I felt like I was competent at.
Do you remember what year that was? Or like when did this enter your brain? Like, oh, I think this is when I decided I was like, this could be a reach goal for me.
I mean, it must have been at least 2 years ago.
Okay.
2.5 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you set this goal and then it's like you voice it to your coach. Okay, what were like some of those first drills and things that you started to do back then? And what did like a training day look like for you when you were doing muscle up work?
Yeah. I definitely had some pulling and some pushing. I worked more on isometric holds in the dip position. I remember doing a lot of that, and you would make fun of me because I would just make like the weirdest faces in my pain cave face of just trying to hang onto the rings in one position.
Yeah.
It was very uncomfortable to get into a deep dip and hold it. But I did some isometrics, which is, really great for building strength. And I would do kind of like combos, like, a strength piece might be some pull-ups either on the rings or on the bar, 3 to 5 of those, rest a little bit, maybe do some strict dips, and then maybe do like an isometric dip hold, something like that. As I got stronger with that, then I started working the ring muscle up negative. And that was a whole other fear to overcome because the first day that I tried it, I was too scared to even jump up to the high rings because I couldn't tell what was going to happen and if I could really support myself in that position. So I remember setting up this whole thing in the rig. No one was here at the gym that day, and I know I looked ridiculous. I was like, I had this random box and bands, and I was just trying to like figure out something to help myself like feel a little bit safer. And then the first time I jumped off the rings, like it was like really legit scary. Like my heart was like pounding because I was so freaked out by that. Just being up high and like jumping up, like it's hard. Yeah.
So before you started those drills, like what were some of like, just if you can even give rough estimates, like how many strict pull-ups do you think you could do before you were like, okay, I want to do a muscle up?
Honestly, I had been able to do more strict pull-ups like in the past. Probably I could get I don't know, 7, 8, 9 strict pull-ups like before, but that strength had even gone down by the time I started the muscle up training. So I think probably like 5, 6, maybe tops.
And then how about like dips, ring dips?
4 or 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you were doing weight. I mean, you could do weighted pull-ups too at that time. Do you like have a sense of lightweight, like 10,
like 10
15
pounds, like 3 sets of, 3 to 5 pull-ups with 10 pounds, something around
Got it.
there. Yeah.
Got it. So then you started to bring muscle up training, and like, how long was it before you were doing a drill that actually felt like, okay, this is kind of like a muscle up. Like, was there because what you've described so far, was this like a lot more strength training specific to translating to the muscle up? You were doing these negatives, so you're actually getting on the rings. Was there a time where you were like, okay, we're now introducing you to do a muscle up that looks like a banded muscle up or something like that? Like, how long until that happened?
Yeah, I didn't even do the banded ones until after I got my first one. So it was really just about the negatives, and it was like getting stronger and more control, because the first time I did a ring muscle up negative, it was like I could barely hang on to it.
Got it.
And then it was like, okay, now I'm getting more control. I feel like I can do another rep more quickly than, not having to like catch my breath like after doing a single one,
Yeah.
Yeah. So it started to just come together more on the negative. And then I had probably several times where like I would attempt a muscle up just straight and just fail it just over and over.
Got it.
Yeah.
How long was that process from like when you started to like your first days where you would attempt them?
I think it was like a year and a half.
So like maybe, a year of strength training and then skill work with negatives, which is also strength training too, but like through the range of motion of a muscle up. So listeners who don't know, it's like a negative on the muscle up would be you go into the top of your dip on high rings, you lower down to the bottom of the dip, and then like as slowly as you can, you would like kind of reverse out of a dip and kind of lean back and go into a pull up, like a very high pull up. And you have to catch yourself in a false grip, which is when the ring sits on your wrist, because that's the position that you need to be in to like kind of transition from a dip to a pull up or a pull up to a dip. And then you would lower yourself down slowly.
It hurts.
And so like it hurts. Day one, you probably just like came to the bottom of your dip. You went to go transition to the pull up and you just almost fell to the bottom.
Almost. Yeah.
Yeah. And then like when you, over time, that became slower and slower, and you could kind of control the rings through that range of motion and then lower yourself down. It's so interesting that was your, like, I mean, I watched it all unfold, and certainly the thing that you did the most of was just the strength work above and below the rings. It was pull-ups, dips, dip isometrics, lots of them over and over again. How many times a week were you doing that?
Twice a week.
Twice a week. Okay. Could have maybe done 3 times a week if that was like your sole, like, hey, I really want to accelerate this, but like 2 times a week so you could fit in.
Yeah.
The other passion of yours, which is Olympic lifting. So you were doing a lot of Olympic lifting along the way.
Yeah.
Which is a whole nother journey that's been really awesome. I think, we just posted a reel on our Functional Bodybuilding page of like your technique from like 5 years ago versus today. It's just incredible to see. But so massive amounts of strength work.
Yep.
Putting in a lot of volume.
Yep.
Getting better and better and better over time. Putting in a touch of this isometric work as well as these negatives.
Yep.
And this is like all the same stuff that people are doing. This is the same way we coach getting the basic skills. So if you don't have a strict pull-up, we don't necessarily put you into bands right away.
Yeah.
The best way to approach strict pull-ups is lat pull-downs, ring rows, like lots of upper back work, and to the point where you can jump up and hold your chin over the bar using your legs. That's an isometric. Just hold it.
Yep.
And then learn how to lower down very slowly through the range of motion.
Yeah.
Those are the most potent strength builders for the body weight skills.
Yeah.
Unless, of course, you have like a machine where you can assist your pull-up. That's also a great way to learn pull-ups. But bands are not optimal just because the resistance profile on them is, it just doesn't give you an even amount of support, and it can, not that it develops like bad habits, it's just not the most direct, fast way to get to a strength, goal in bodyweight gymnastics. So that's super cool. So it's a year, you attempt your first muscle up and you fail.
Oh yeah. Many fails.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the day you got like the first strict muscle up? When did that happen?
Oh yeah. I mean, that you were there that day.
Yes.
And that was March.
March.
Like a year back.
in 2023.
Yeah.
Okay. And you probably started this journey like January 2022.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. So 15 months later, you finally get a strict muscle up. It's like ring the bell, PR.
Yeah.
Greatest day.
Celebration,
so
best
excited.
day ever.
It was so fun. And so this, I think, is where things get really interesting in the story. What happened after that?
Okay, so after that, I remember that my coach changed my workouts and it was like, okay, great, you got your first muscle up. Now we're going to do a strict muscle up plus some negatives to kind of like reinforce that. And that's exactly what I used to do with my strict pull-ups. It's like, once you can get, 1 to 2 pull-ups, it's like, great, you do that every time, and then you do some negatives to keep building that strength. So great, makes sense to me. I couldn't get it again. And I tried every single week for like 3 or 4 weeks in a row, and I could never get another strict muscle up. And every week it was like more and more depressing. My confidence was like in the gutter. It was like this thing that I would like dread every single week when I saw that on my program, like having to make that attempt and fail.
Yeah.
So I said, I don't think this is working. I think we need to do something different. I'm just failing. So, and this was where I kind of suggested, hey, like, what if we try some banded muscle up drills? Because I felt like I needed to just get my confidence back of getting up and over. And I was like, at least if I have a banded muscle up, I could, get that physical sensation of just up and up. So we did that. And, it was with all the other things. We increased to 3 times a week. So I was doing banded muscle up drills and continuing with all of the upper body stuff that I was doing. And it didn't work.
It didn't work.
No.
So that was in March. By April of 2023, you're like, okay, I don't want to like keep trying and failing. Let's try banded work. And then it was like, how many months of like doing more and more banded work was it? That was pretty much the rest of your training program for the rest of the year, was doing a lot of that.
Yeah.
And I remember like troubleshooting with you, like, okay, well, maybe we should try this version of it or this. And like, I think you went through probably like 3 or 4 different variations of like band setups.
Yeah. I tried different stuff. I tried different like training structures of like, okay, what if we focus on volume? It's like, nope, like, and I was still doing all my other stuff, like, dips and pull-ups, but I was missing a key element, I think.
What was the key element that you felt like you're missing?
It was just that the muscle up specifically has this really intense transition moment. And that is what requires so much strength, and that is the hardest part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
And in addition to the transition part, you have to be able to connect your core into it. And there was something that would happen where like I would kind of like loosey-goosey pull my upper body up, but then my lower body was just kind of flopping in the breeze, and that lack of connection was not helping me like get the momentum that I needed to pull.
The lack of connection because you had this band that was basically supporting you through your weakness.
Yeah.
You could do pull-ups all the time, strengthen those. You could strengthen your dip.
Yeah.
But the portion of the muscle up that was your fail point, it was this transitional moment from pull-up to dip, which you're talking about requires a very unique angle of strength and pulling and connection to your core. And really it's like doing the heaviest weighted sit-up of your life. While you're with your arm in like this awkwardly bent position. Like if people were watching right now, my arm is like, I'm like doing the biggest bicep curl of my life with my knuckles against my chest, and then trying to like pull your hand underneath your armpit against like a 1 rep max, like the maximum strength. And there's no way to replicate that in an assisted, like there's very few ways you can fully replicate that in an assisted way.
Yeah.
Bands are great tools in the gym, but they're very imprecise. Like, it's hard to set that up in a very effective way for each person. And so it sounds like maybe the drill that had the most impact was your muscle up negatives, because it forced you to learn strength through the transition under your own body weight and gravity. And then maybe that did that kind of disappeared a bit from your training, or did you keep that up? Or
I kept a little bit of it, but I added a lot more things.
so it became de-emphasized in place of some of these other
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
So if you could do it all over again, go back knowing what you know now, like what would you have maybe done differently in your approach from like March 2023 onward?
Well, I mean, what ended up really making the difference for me was that I went out, I was like, I need a pro. So I went and I purchased Pamela's program. She's the gymnastics wizard. And she has a muscle up progression, strict training muscle up. And so I basically purchased the whole program and then brought it to my coach. And I was like, hey, can you help me like plug this into my strength training, you know, and work this in, because my program has Olympic lifting and it has gymnastics and other things in it. So it was like I didn't want to just like go off and do some other program. I wanted it to be integrated. So, but we started using a lot of her drills, which were around transition, tons of transition drills, like basically like you do ring transitions with your feet on the ground, your feet up on a box, your feet behind you on a box, putting your body into lots of different positions to work lots of volume in the transition. And then in addition, doing negatives, doing false ring pull-ups, doing some core work, and doing some, some drills like Russian push-ups, because that also works that sort of those transition muscles.
Can you describe what a Russian push-up is to people who don't know that?
Yeah. And I do the scaled version because even the regular Russian push-up is like too hard for me. But basically imagine getting in a push-up position, only the way I do it is I have my my shins on a roller behind me.
Okay.
And it's like you're basically going to like push yourself down all the way to the ground and shoot yourself back, and then shoot yourself forward, low to the ground and push up. And as you push up, you really integrate your core. So you're almost like, arching, or rounding your back at the top. Got
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like
a hollow body.
Yeah, it mimics that transition strength a bit.
Yeah. So, and by the way, like all of these drills are really hard and really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think I would have done a lot of that sooner, because that's what ended up making the difference.
Anybody looking to like progress something in the physical, like fitness world or some skill, it's like go back. There's this journey was like building up the base strength to be able to do the 1 rep.
Yeah.
Took you 15 months.
Yeah.
Then you do the 1 rep. And at that moment, the best course of action would maybe have been to identify, well, what is the hardest part of this thing for me?
Yep.
What's the hardest part of this new skill? Because before, the hardest part was getting myself up to the rings and getting myself out of the dip. I didn't have that. I unlocked that, and then on this magical day, I put them together. And it was like so excited, maybe didn't even register like what allowed me to put that together.
Yeah.
The thing that allowed you to put it together was you had the right combination of excitement, adrenaline, and enough strength in the transition to combine with this like, basically like superhuman strength that you were able to kind of connect to that day, and you did it. And you're like, okay, cool, I got it. And then in reevaluating, it's like, okay, the stars aligned on this day so that I had enough strength in the transition to get this thing once.
Yeah.
But the transition was massively difficult, and that is my missing link here.
Yeah.
I don't have that yet.
Yeah.
And imagine if you had started transition training with these drills in 2022 to go along. Like, because some of those, they're scaled in a way where you can just build up volume doing them.
Yeah.
So it's not max effort work. It's just skill strength work.
Yeah.
So when you got that muscle up in March, then it was like, I took all this time off from really focusing on the thing that mattered the most. And I did it inadvertently by adopting an assistant strategy that basically made it so I wasn't really working on the strength aspect. I was just working on the kind of skill aspect of it.
Yeah.
And so when you finally got that strength work back in through this supplementary program, which you thoughtfully had a coach mix in with the rest of your training because you didn't want to stop doing Olympic lifting. You didn't want to stop doing some of your conditioning and your bodybuilding work. Integrated it all. How many months later until you were back up on the high rings, giving it a shot?
Yeah, I'd have to look at like when we started doing that, but that was like, I think somewhere around 5-6 months.
5-6 months.
Yeah.
And then you went for some attempts.
Yeah.
You got back up on the high rings and
I made it.
you made it. Did
Yeah.
you make it on the first try going back up there, or?
I think I tried because I usually will try like one last one like before the end of the year. So like I think I tried one like in late December, early January, see if I could sneak one in for 2023, like another rep.
Yeah.
And I didn't make it. And so then it was probably like, from January to March. Yeah.
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 And so now what's the update? Where's your strict muscle up at?
Yeah. So now so then after I got one again, that was a really big moment. And basically what happened was that, I was like, I didn't even know if I had the strength, but I know I'd been feeling stronger and that my transition work was really feeling like it had changed in quality. So I was like, okay, I just need to start trying again because I was really mentally blocked around it as well. Mm-hmm. I didn't have confidence.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm just going to start doing an attempt at least once a week or more often, just at the end of training, like whatever, just give it a try because I'm the type of person that like wants everything to be perfect before I'll go for something.
Yeah.
And then I won't go for it enough and then I miss out. So I'm like, I have to just like get up there. So I did. And I was like, oh shit, that was actually like really close. And you were in the gym that day. You were like, give it a couple of minutes and try it again. And then I made it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was great. But now, so then you challenged me to do the 2024 Muscle Up AMRAP.
Yeah.
To see if I can get 100 before the end of the year.
Yeah.
And I'm up to 9. So I think I'm on track.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're like basically every training session you try one, right?
I try one every time and I don't make it every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's rad.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. We got it up on the whiteboard here,
mm-hmm.
and it's been super cool to watch your journey through this and the highs and some of the lows. And I always know when you're up there, just about every time I know when you're up there attempting.
Because I make noises.
Well, I mean, no, sometimes you kind of like low key, just like get over there and know you like, I think you try and like do it without people watching, but I'm usually aware. Today, actually, you got up there before I turned around and nailed it, which was awesome. But my excitement for the days where you make it and my just like desire to hold the space for you when you don't on the days where it doesn't go well. I've seen a lot of the failures over the last year. And so it's just, I'm super proud of you, excited for you in this kind of, delayed gratification phase you're going through. You've put in a ton of hard work, and I wanted you to talk this. I mean, I thought this would be a great story to tell because these like goals that we have, like, it's two plus almost 2.5 years later where you're now finding a rhythm of being able to like do this skill. And if you had given up like in year one, cause you're like, I just can't, it's like, doesn't even seem possible. Mm-hmm. I mean, Satya, can you share how old you are to the audience?
Yeah, I'm 46.
Okay. 46, like learning resistance training, within the last 6-7 years, mm-hmm. really only like deciding that you're going to take on this task or this challenge of like trying to learn one of the hardest gymnastic skills that like any average person can ever consider like to learn. And yeah, a lot of signs pointed to like, yeah, you shouldn't be able to do this. Mm-hmm. Yet you did. And it just takes time and some really hard work. And there's all this whole lesson of like, just because you did it once, like you got to keep using this analytical thinking around like, how do I get better at the thing by really evaluating where are the weak points and then directing your training at it. And Anyway, such a cool story.
Yeah. And we had one of our FBB followers DM'd me and they were excited when I posted a muscle up on my Instagram, and they were like, yeah, when I saw some of your early attempts, I did not think you were going to make it.
Oh, man.
And I was like, that's fair. I didn't know if I was either. And I think that this is something that has always just been a quality of mine, where I'm like, I don't feel like the strongest person or the most athletic person, but I am a person who will just stick with something. And there has been a lot of really amazing things that have fulfilled me personally from sticking to it.
Yeah.
And I think that there's not a lot of representation out there around taking your time with something. And I'm on I'm a Reddit fan, and I'm in the CrossFit subreddit, and everyone posts like, oh, I got my first muscle up today. And it's always this like janky kipping muscle up, And I'm like, oh God, I love that people go for it. Like, I'm not one to, like be negative about anyone's progress, but I also just feel like it's been special for me to do it the hard way. And it's just, I think, something that gets underappreciated when you just want to be able to do the thing so bad that you just are hurling yourself into space. It's like when you take the time and like really do it, I just feel like I'm strong, I'm stable, I'm not going to get injured, and I have all of the personal wins from being on a journey that took an embarrassingly long time.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing. And if y'all want to get on Satya's program, you can DM her. Okay.
Get Pamela's. She's a Performance Plus program, I think.
Awesome.
Yeah, I recommend.
Cool. All right. If y'all have any questions for Miss Satya, please send them in, and we can always answer them. But thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, see ya.